is asking us to calculate what's called the MOIC, which is really a multiple, and it does not reflect timing of cash flows. So it reminds me a lot of the payback period, if you remember from corporate finance. So as an investment manager, well, in that case, a corporate financier, is internally you're going to say, okay, here's a project, do we expand into Moldavia, or do we just continue with like a royalty model? And you compare two different models. But then at the end of the day, after you've done your NPV and IRR, a lot of managers will say, can you crunch that payback? I really just need to know when I get my money back. So it's simple, it's intuitive. Same with MOIC. What's my multiple? Like you look at Elon, right? He basically took Twitter, took it private, and is going to, restructure the hell out of it, and is probably going to sell it for 5 times how much he paid for it. That's kind of the idea, right, of this sort of stuff. But nevertheless, in this case here, we have an investment of 3.8, but what's the exit? So we exit at 8.5. And so I want to take a look at our cash flows. So the cash flows are going to be 8.5 divided by, we got the 3.8. What else we got? We have 1.2 and the 0.2. All right, so plus 1.2 and plus the 0.2 million. So careful with that, right? Or 0.2 billion, I should say. So when you crunch that number, we get to a value of 1.63. Now, one of the problems, when Nolan and I wrote this exam, there was A, B, C, D. So you could have another option here where maybe the MOIC was 1.63 times and maybe the IRR was a distractor, like let's say 25%. But nevertheless, I digress. So we know it's going to be A. A is the correct answer, but let's calculate our IRR. And that's actually a big takeaway here is the IRR takes a long time to calculate. So if you're on the exam, I would just run for the hills. I'd circle A and I'd move on. Right, or nowadays select A. But let's run the numbers. What we have to do is in our calculator, we have to go CF, right, the CF function, and then we hit. Now it's up to you. You could save a little bit of time here, and I would recommend it. You could go 3.8, and you'd understand that they're in millions to save time, and then you'd go enter. Okay, then you go down arrow, and then you hit the next one. CF1 is 0. Got to be careful with that. You still have to hit the enter and the down arrow. Dumb mistake here, folks. A lot of students will not recognize, or they'll put the 0, but they won't go enter. You need to do that. Now you're going to see CF2. Now for CF2, you have a cash flow of, what do we got here? 1.2. And again, we'd understand it's in millions. And you go enter and then down arrow. But actually, one thing here we do need to be mindful of is that these are, well, unless you can kind of keep your ducks in a row, is that technically you should go 3.8 plus minus, because that's a negative sign. And then you'd go 1.2 plus minus. But as long as you have things lined up, then you should be all right. Anyway, the next cash flow 3 is 0.2 if we're keeping it in millions. Enter down arrow. And then our CF 4 would be 4 to 7. So all the way from 4 to 7, we need to hit 0 and then enter and then the dreaded down arrow. You got to keep doing that. Now CF8 is a positive 8.5, and again that would be in millions. And then you have to hit IRR, and then you hit compute. And lo and behold, what are you going to get? You're going to get 20%. Now the savvy student, once again, would already know that. But nevertheless, hopefully that little tip helps. Now, they didn't ask us in this question, but they might ask you on the exam. Again, usually along with calculating, it's describe it. So when would we use MOIC? It's used a lot in this space, right? In the private equity space or long-term infrastructure projects. And what it does, again, is it quickly gives you a number. What's my multiple? Almost like payback. How soon am I going to get my money back? So with this, it's more like, how many times am I going to multiply my initial investment? And it allows you to compare across deals, but again, regardless of timing, which is its disadvantage. So a good example is, let's say a fund raised, let's say 5.8 million, and it exits for, or no, it enters at 5 and it exits for 15. Then obviously the multiple would be 3 times. But the problem again is you got to make sure that you are aware of the time value of money. So if you have another case where you have 2 deals, they both have a multiple of 3 times, once again, but one gives you your money back in 3 years, and the other one gives you your money back in 10 years. So which one's going to have the better IRR, right? Of course, the one that gives you your money back much faster. And so the other thing I want to mention here is that the startups and portfolio companies, sometimes what happens is that they have these really irregular cash flows. And so that could be an argument where, yeah, okay, we're going to do the IRR and probably like an NPV type thing as well too. But that's where the MOIC really shines, where it's really, really hard to kind of forecast those irregular cash flows. So there you have it, folks. A little bit of a description as well as the calculation. Hopefully that was helpful.